Have you ever felt invisible? As if no matter how many people surround you, no one truly sees you? What if I told you that right now, you're becoming something very few can achieve? Someone truly free. Nietzsche, the philosopher who challenged the norms of his time, believed that true transformation begins when you begin to lose the expectations of others. In silence, when convenient words fall silent and solitude settles in, you start to notice something essential, something deep, a part of you that has been buried under expectations, under the fear of being rejected or misunderstood. Maybe you've noticed people starting to drift away. Conversations grow shorter, meetings become rarer. At first, you blame yourself. Have you become cold, difficult to please? But what if the truth is different? What if, in this distancing, something new is being born? Something that, in Nietzsche's view, is the first sign that you're freeing yourself from a life of masks. It's normal to feel fear when you notice this distance. The void it creates can seem like a reflection of your own failure. But Nietzsche spoke of the loss of the crowd as the precursor to freedom. The freedom that only the few brave enough can attain. The freedom to be who you really are without depending on external approval, without fearing the judgment of others. When we start to let go of our social masks, something curious happens. People around us begin to pull away. Not because you've changed for the worse, but because by becoming more authentic, you break the patterns and expectations they had of you. This transformation, although painful, is an essential part of the self-awareness process. You are not losing the world. You are simply letting go of what was never truly yours. The painful truth is this: the loneliness you're feeling is not the end. It's not a punishment or a curse. It's the beginning of a new path. A path where you begin to realize that by freeing yourself from the expectations and social conveniences, you're gaining something infinitely more valuable: the right to be yourself. And Nietzsche knew this. He believed that when you begin to stray from the herd, what many would call rejection is, in reality, liberation. It's not a loss. It's a transformation. If you are going through this, if silence feels more present than ever, know that it's not the end of the road. You're only beginning to remember who you really are. No, you are not broken. You are becoming. And this process of transformation, though painful, is exactly what your soul needs to grow. Nietzsche once said, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster." The silence, the absence of approval, is shaping you. And in the end, you will become someone who no longer needs to hide or justify themselves, someone who finds freedom in the truth of who they really are. The mask of the social self. Why we need friends to forget who we really are. How many times have you caught yourself laughing at a joke that wasn't funny? Agreeing to things you didn't really agree with? Pretending to be someone you're not just to fit in? What if, in these moments, you're not just losing yourself, but losing the very essence of who you were meant to be? There's a mask we wear, a persona that society helps us craft, molding us into someone who is acceptable, pleasing, and most of all, invisible. This mask serves as armor, protecting us from judgment, rejection, and the painful truth of being seen for who we truly are. But when you put on this mask, you're not just hiding from others. You're hiding from yourself. Nietzsche saw this as a kind of self-betrayal, a slow surrender of your authenticity to the demands of the crowd. Have you ever noticed how much of your identity is shaped by the roles you play in other people's lives? You're the helper, the peacemaker, the one who fixes others' problems while silently ignoring your own. You wear the mask of who others expect you to be, and in doing so, you slowly lose touch with the person you once were, or the person you could have been. As you start to peel away the layers of this mask, something strange begins to happen. People begin to notice the change. They stop sending you texts, they start avoiding the deep conversations, and those calls that were once frequent now remain unanswered. And you start to question, is it me? Am I too much? Have I become cold and distant? But here's the truth. As you shed these roles, you're not becoming less of a person. You're simply becoming more of who you are, the real you. And while this is terrifying for some, Nietzsche believed that this is exactly what leads to freedom. When you stop playing the game, you stop being a pawn in it. This is the beginning of differentiation, the first step toward true individuality. And the painful part? Most people never get here. They run back to their masks, to the roles they've always played because the price of being fully authentic is too high. They would rather stay in the comfort of conformity than risk the discomfort of self-truth. The moment you begin to truly let go of these masks, you will find that people begin to pull away. It's not because you've done anything wrong. It's because you've stopped performing. You've stopped giving them what they wanted, and now they no longer know how to relate to you. You've become a mirror that forces them to confront their own emptiness, their own need for validation. But what you'll soon realize is that this is not a loss. This is liberation. You no longer need to wear the mask to feel accepted. And in this newfound freedom, you may find yourself in a place of deeper connection, but not with everyone. Only with those who are willing to embrace the real you, without the performance, without the pretense. So if you find yourself in a space where the phone calls are fewer, the invitations are gone, and the people who once knew you seem distant, don't panic. This is not rejection. It's the shedding of an old self, an old persona that no longer serves you. You're not alone in your solitude. You're becoming. And the real you, beneath the mask, is finally ready to show itself. Nietzsche spoke of the free spirit, the person who no longer needs to conform to the herd, and who finds strength in solitude, not weakness. This is where the magic happens. You stop chasing approval. You stop seeking the applause. And in this stillness, you start to see what you've been blind to all along, the person you were always meant to be. The fear of rejection. How solitude reinforces our deepest insecurities. Have you ever felt the sting of rejection so deeply that it made you question your worth? What if I told you that the fear of rejection isn't really about what others think of you, but about the parts of yourself that you've been hiding for so long? Rejection, it's one of the most painful experiences we can face as humans. But what if the true source of this pain lies not in the judgment of others, but in our own relationship with ourselves? Nietzsche understood that the fear of rejection is often tied to an inner war, a battle between who we truly are and who we've convinced ourselves we need to be in order to be loved or accepted. When you begin to remove the layers of your social mask, a terrifying thing happens. The world reacts. People you once relied on start to drift away. Texts stop coming. Invitations fade. And in that moment, it's easy to fall into the trap of self-blame. Is it me? Am I too much? Too intense? But what if this pain, this fear, is not about others rejecting you, but about rejecting yourself? What if your isolation is merely a reflection of the parts of you that you've been running from? The truth is, the deeper you go into yourself, the more you begin to see your own shadows. The fears, the insecurities, the parts of you that you've hidden so well, even from yourself. And what's worse, the more you strip away, the more you realize that these parts of you are what others might reject. It's easy to think that loneliness comes from being unwanted. But Nietzsche teaches us that loneliness is often the consequence of becoming too real for a world that thrives on masks. We fear rejection because we fear the exposure of our truest selves. The moment we stop performing, the moment we stop pretending, we believe that we're no longer worthy of love. But in reality, we are finally becoming worthy of our own love. And that's the hardest love to receive. Here's the painful yet liberating truth. The rejection you feel in the world is not the world telling you that you're unworthy. It's the world telling you that you are no longer playing by its rules. You've stopped performing. You've stopped seeking validation in places where it's hollow and fleeting. The world can't handle this new version of you because it's unfamiliar to them. It's raw, real, and unpolished. But Nietzsche saw this as the beginning of something far greater: self-mastery. When you stop seeking the approval of others, you can finally begin to honor yourself. The rejection you feel is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of the new you, breaking free from old patterns and expectations. So, the next time you feel rejected or alone, ask yourself, am I really alone? Or am I simply refusing to shrink in order to fit into someone else's version of me? This loneliness is not a punishment. It's a purification. You are being stripped of the false versions of yourself that you once clung to. And through this process, you will eventually find a love that is deep, unwavering, and unconditional, the love that comes from within. Nietzsche's vision of the free spirit is one who is no longer controlled by the need for external validation. You are finally learning that rejection is not a reflection of your worth. It's the beginning of your journey toward becoming truly whole. Nietzsche's philosophy of self-sufficiency, when the absence of friends becomes a path to self-discovery. What if I told you that the emptiness you feel in your life right now, the absence of friends, the quiet moments alone, could be the most important journey you'll ever take? What if, instead of running from it, you learned to embrace it? In a world that constantly tells us we need more people, more connections, more validation, Nietzsche's philosophy stands as a stark contrast. He spoke of a different kind of strength, one that comes not from relying on others but from cultivating an inner world so rich that the absence of external approval no longer matters. When friends begin to disappear and social invitations stop, it's easy to spiral into feelings of loneliness. The mind quickly races to thoughts like, "What's wrong with me? Why am I being left behind?" But Nietzsche teaches us that this desert of solitude is not a sign of failure. It's a space for growth. A sacred space where we stop clinging to the crutches of social connection and begin to stand on our own. It's only in this solitude that we can truly hear ourselves, without the noise of others drowning out our inner voice. In a world that values connection, being alone is often seen as a punishment. But Nietzsche would say that this is the moment of transformation. This is where you begin to discover who you really are, beyond the roles you've played and the masks you've worn. The idea of being alone can feel like a death, the death of an identity tied to the validation of others. And indeed, this is the death Nietzsche spoke of, the death of the old self, the self that exists only through the lens of others' expectations. But what happens when you sit in that silence long enough? What happens when you stop trying to fill the void with distractions or approval? You start to realize that the silence, the emptiness, is not your enemy. It is the soil from which your truest self can grow. The voice within you that has been dormant, the one you've been afraid to hear, begins to speak. As you let go of the need for others to define you, you step into your own sovereignty. Nietzsche called this the moment of self-overcoming, the moment when you transcend the need for external validation and begin to create meaning from within. This is the moment when you truly become free. Here's the paradox. The more you learn to stand alone, the more you begin to realize that you are not alone at all. The absence of others only makes space for your own presence. The less you need from the outside world, the more you realize that you are enough, exactly as you are. Nietzsche's free spirit isn't someone who seeks independence to isolate themselves, but rather to strengthen their inner foundation so they can create authentic relationships from a place of true self-knowledge. You begin to understand that your solitude is not a prison. It's the very ground on which your soul can flourish. The true test of self-sufficiency is not in how much you can achieve on your own, but in how much you can embrace the absence of everything that wants to find you. When you stop chasing friendships out of fear, you make room for something deeper. Relationships that are grounded in mutual understanding, not in the need to fill an emotional void. So when you find yourself sitting alone, feeling the weight of emptiness, ask yourself, am I truly empty? Or am I just learning to fill myself with something far more meaningful than external validation? Nietzsche's idea of the overman was never about being alone for the sake of isolation. It was about transcending the need for validation from others and learning to create your own meaning. This path may be lonely, but it's also the most freeing one you'll ever walk. And in this freedom, you'll discover that you were never truly alone. You were just waiting to find the person you've always been. The cost of freedom. Are you becoming more free or just more alone? What if I told you that the price of true freedom isn't the absence of people, but the willingness to lose the very parts of you that have always depended on them. Are you ready to walk this path, even when it means facing yourself, without any distractions? Freedom. It's a word we all long for, but it comes at a steep price. Nietzsche understood this better than anyone. True freedom, he believed, isn't about escaping responsibilities or avoiding connection. It's about shedding the layers of illusion. The illusions that you need the approval of others to be whole, that you need relationships to feel worthy, that you need validation to feel alive. As you continue to walk the path of solitude, as the calls and the invitations fade, you may begin to question, am I becoming more free, or am I just becoming more isolated? The fear of being alone can trick you into thinking that freedom and loneliness are the same. But the truth is they are not. Loneliness is the result of feeling disconnected from others, from our true selves, and from life itself. It's a void we try to fill with distractions, with people, with approval. Freedom, on the other hand, comes when you no longer need any of that, when you can stand on your own without needing anyone to validate your existence. But the cost of this freedom is high. It means letting go of the relationships, the roles, and the comforts you once held dear. It means walking through the fire of your own inner truth, even when it feels like everything around you is burning down. Nietzsche often spoke of the death of the ego, the moment when we let go of our former selves, our masks, our need to be understood by others. This process is not easy, and it's not pretty. The fear, the grief, the sense of loss, it's all part of the journey. You may wonder if you've made a mistake, if it's worth the cost. But Nietzsche reminds us that there is no rebirth without destruction. You will lose people along the way. You will be misunderstood, misjudged, and even abandoned. The relationships you once depended on will crumble, and it will hurt. It will feel like something is dying inside of you. But what's actually dying is the version of you that was never truly alive. What's dying is the person who relied on others to define their worth. And here's where the paradox lies. As you lose these attachments, you also gain something infinitely more valuable: yourself. You become free, not in the sense of escaping from life, but in the sense of embracing it fully, on your own terms. True freedom isn't the absence of people, but the ability to exist in the world without the need to bend, shrink, or contort yourself to please others. Nietzsche's concept of the overman is someone who is self-sufficient, not because they have no need for others, but because they no longer require external validation to be whole. And as you move deeper into this freedom, you begin to notice something amazing. The people who once left you behind, the ones who couldn't handle the new version of you, will start to fade away. But that's okay, because in the space they leave behind, you will find room for something better. This space is not empty. It is full of potential. It is full of possibility. The relationships that will come are not built on dependence, but on mutual respect, honesty, and authenticity. When the silence settles, when the phone stops ringing, when the last person you thought would be there walks away, don't panic. This is not the end of your story. This is the beginning. This is the threshold between who you once were and who you are becoming. Nietzsche believed that the cost of true transformation, true freedom, is the willingness to walk alone for a while, to stand firm in the face of loneliness, and to trust that something greater will emerge from the ashes. You are not losing friends. You are losing illusions. You are not becoming cold. You are becoming clear. And on the other side of this quiet, you will meet the version of yourself that was always there, waiting to be seen. This is the price of freedom, and it is worth every bit of it.